Hey everybody, all my friends out there, this is Jesse. You're watching JLS Comics. Thanks for pressing play. So today we're going to be talking about King Kirby. That is Jack the King Kirby. It's August of 2017, and this marks 100 years of King Kirby. In fact, today, August 28th, Jack Kirby would be 100 years old. Would he still be alive? Kirby's work started decades and decades ago, and we will talk about that, but it still continues to be relevant and important, and still continues to be something upon which many people judge others' work. He is a man whose art continues to be important and continues to push forward in terms of boundaries and in terms of what folks can do with it. It continues to be celebrated. It's still in the movies, and we'll talk about that at the end. But for those of you who don't know, here's a little bit of history about Jack Kirby. He was born August 28th, 1917, as Jacob Kurtzberg, later adopted the pen name Jack Kirby because it actually reminded him of James Cagney phonetically. Jack Kirby, James Cagney, a little bit different there, but I can see where he picked up on the phonetics there. He was born in Lower East Side of Manhattan to very poor, blue class, working class European Jewish immigrant parents. It was very tough at the time, going through the Depression, going through, the era right before World War II, but because of that, his parents instilled in him a very hard, important work ethic, which he carried over to his comic book career. He was basically a workaholic. He would be sketching long hours, sketching day in and day out and trying to turn out pages just to put more food on the table. He averaged about $15 a week, but putting out all of that work, tried to put food on the table for his family, for himself. It was tough way back in the early burgeoning days of the comic book industry. Trying to make a name for yourself, trying to find somebody to work with, trying to manage what was essentially a really mismanaged field with a lot of freelancers competing against each other. Getting steady work was the tough thing. You could find work, a page here and there, a book here and there, but to find steady work was really tough. But Jack ended up finding some work with a couple companies, one of which was Timely Publications, all the way back in 1940. It was there that he created the comic book, Captain America Comics #1, which gave us, of course, not only an iconic, easily recognizable, one of the most important covers ever to come out of comics, but the character himself, which was Captain America. And that cover depicted Captain America punching out Adolf Hitler and, fighting the axis of evil. This was even before the Allies, or even before the United States had joined World War II. Kirby sent his creation off to fight for us. But Kirby himself, soon thereafter, joined the Second World War. He served as private first class in the 11th Infantry Division over in Europe, fighting for us. But unfortunately, he had developed frostbite in some of the frigid cold conditions in Europe at the time, and received an honorable discharge. So he ended up coming back soon thereafter. He actually found some work with Harvey Publications. He worked on Young Romance, which was one of the titles at the time. And he, along with a man named Joe Simon, created a character called the Fighting American. This was somewhat as an answer to the relaunch of Captain America through Atlas Publications. He was a little peeved that they had taken his creation and relaunched it without him. So that's why he created the Fighting American. But the company was once known as Timely. It became Atlas, later evolving into Marvel Comics, of course. There was a time in there, it was actually a 30-month gap of time where Atlas had stopped making anything. They had ceased publications. So Jack actually went over to DC Comics to work for DC as a freelancer. It's there that he created Challengers of the Unknown, which later inspired Fantastic Four. But after that, he came back to Marvel Comics and continued to push the boundaries of what was really possible in the medium at the time. He created characters like Black Panther, he created the Hulk, one of my favorites, Devil Dinosaur, him, which became Adam Warlock. He created Loki, he created Peggy Carter, the Watcher, Super Skrulls, Surtur, the list goes on. Thor, Volstagg, Doctor Doom, and these are all through Marvel at the time. He also created a depiction of energy in the power that characters use, or the power that's in the cosmic field, and that developed its own name. It became so synonymous with Jack Kirby that it became known as Kirby Crackle, something that people still refer to today, and something that is still used in comic books and is still emulated in comic books today. So he was creating all of these iconic characters, these celestial worlds, these amazing battles, but there was a fight in the real world as well for him. He was fighting with Marvel for appropriate credit on his various works. And eventually, it became time to renew his contract. So some say, in retaliation, Marvel had created a contract for him that had rapidly decreased his compensation, and it was generally unfavorable for him. So very frustrated, he actually left Marvel Comics and signed a 3-year contract with DC Comics, and this was in 1971. It's during this time that he created OMAC, he created Darkseid, Big Barda, Metron, Orion, and these characters were the new gods. And let me talk to you a second about Metron. In terms of the cinematic universe, these billion-dollar franchises that Marvel Studios and DC Comics through Warner Brothers Studios are creating, they're still using Kirby's work. In fact, and I say that, but Thanos is the character that I'm referring to with Marvel Comics. And yes, I know it was a Jim Starlin creation. However, there was a interview with John B. Cook with Jim Starlin. I forget the year it was done. It was Comic Book Artist number 2. It was an interview with Jim Starlin, and Jim said basically, yes, Thanos was inspired by Darkseid. However, he had initially had a character that when he was in, I believe it was a psychology class or something at the time, he was drawing a character and it looked a lot more like Metron, another one of the new gods, another one, of course, of Jack Kirby's creations. So Roy Thomas looked at it and said, you know what? This guy in this chair, Metron, he said, that's cool, I like it, but if you're going to steal one of the new gods, at least rip off Darkseid, one of the really good ones. So Starlin beefed up Thanos and made him look a little bit more like Darkseid, but the original inspiration there was Metron in his flying chair. So little trivia for you there. And in Thor Ragnarok, there is some depictions on the wall behind the Collector. There's a couple scenes there, and I'll put them up on the screen, that pull directly from Fantastic Four number 64. So those are directly inspired by him. And of course, Darkseid will be the big bad. His general is Steppenwolf, who will be in Justice League, but the big bad behind Steppenwolf will be Darkseid. So you can see in both of these franchises, they continue to use Kirby's work. It still continues to inform and drive the direction of companies today. But he was fighting, so he went over to DC. Like I said, he created the new gods. He created Mark Moonrider, Seraphim, Viking. Those became the Forever People, and that was in 1971, of course, with Forever People number 1. So 71, 3 years later, a little bit of a gap, but Kirby actually came back to Marvel Comics, and this was about 1975. There's a 3-year stint there, 75 to 78. He, along with Stan Lee, created one of the first graphic novels for Marvel. It was called The Silver Surfer: The Ultimate Cosmic Experience. That's to his credit as well. His last publication with Stan Lee, of course, and his last publication actually with DC was in 1989. It was Action Comics number 638. He created a lot of other characters. Even as he got older and more sickly, he had done some work with Hanna-Barbera, that is, with animations and what have you on the screen. But he had actually signed through Topps Comics. There was a licensing agreement that he had basically signed off all of his creations like Night Glider and Bombast to them. They created a new Kirbyverse and the Kirby Chrome, but those are characters that he created into the 70s. So he was still able to even though he was older and probably couldn't really write at the time because of his ailments and health conditions, still was able to find a way to, to make a little bit of money there. So it was in 1994, February of 1994, that Jack finally succumbed to his heart failure. He was at home. It was in Thousand Oaks, California. I was just there, in fact, last week. But he had passed in 94. And even to this day, people still are talking about his work, still revere his work, still quote it, still in terms of, referencing it and citing it as a, pinnacle of, the medium and what can be done with it. In fact, Axel Alonso said, believe it was today, in one of the articles that have come out, if there was a Mount Rushmore of American comic book artists, Jack Kirby would sit front and center. And I know some people have kind of rolled their eyes at that. I don't think that they're actually rolling their eyes at the analogy, but the treatment of Kirby's work in current comic books, and I'm specifically talking about what's being done with Captain America right now, and the fact that he had turned for a time to become Hydra, working with Hydra, and a lot of people thought that was an insult to Kirby and a disservice that Marvel had done to one of its greatest creators. And that, folks, is Jack Kirby. His work is amazing. He created so many people, so many folks that we still know and love today. Movies are coming out around Black Panther, of course. Captain America has had many movies. The Inhumans are coming onto TV very soon. We're getting Skrulls in one of the upcoming movies, Captain Marvel. And of course Thor, the movie coming out very soon, Ragnarok. So there is just so much, there is so much on the future for Kirby and I guess the Kirby estate in terms of what can be done, and so much more of his work that still has yet to be realized in terms of the cinematic life. There's a lot that can be done there. People love his work. I love his work as well. Really happy to have done this, talk a little bit about Kirby and his life and his work, and I look forward to reading many more of his books and discovering many more of his works that I have yet to discover and read, and dive even deeper into his work. As testament to him, I believe it was 1987, he won an Eisner Award. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame. You don't get in there easily. Let's just say that. So happy birthday posthumously to Jack the King Kirby. Thanks for all your work. Thanks for everything you did in comic books. And if you can hear this, man, thank you. That's it, guys. This is Jesse here with JLS Comics. If you liked what you heard here, feel free to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if it's your first time around. I'm always looking for comments, questions, any type of interaction with the folks out there in YouTube land. Always love it, so feel free to leave those comments down below. Love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for any future videos such as this, feel free to let me know. Reach out to me on any of my social media, and of course, if you want to hear a little bit more about Jack, I do have a link to an article down in the description here for the video. So that's it, guys. This is Jesse, JLS Comics, and I'll see you in the next video.